All right, thank you all for joining us. We're here for the 2022 US Rowing Youth National Championships Coaches and Coxswains meeting. Before we go ahead and get started into all the information, I just want to send a big thank you to a few groups of people. So first being our referee committee for this meeting, or for this regatta. So we have our chief referee, Ruth McNamara, who has been such a big help and spent so much time and effort dedicating to this regatta for multiple years. And it's just truly been a pleasure working with her this year. So big thank you to Ruth and our deputy, Duncan Hudson, who not only is deputy for this event, but was chief for our Mid-Atlantic Championship. So also has quite a bit of experience. And it's just been great to work with such a dedicated jury. So we are all in good hands from our referee end. And then want to send a big thank you to our Youth Nationals Advisory Committee. So we have one rep from every region, and they have worked tirelessly making sure that petitions are going through, making sure seating is going through, and then we'll be helping throughout as an advisory group throughout the committee there. So led by Eric Gerke, and again, one rep from every region, so big thank you to them. Also, big thank you to all the coaches and athletes. This is the biggest youth nationals to date. So last year it was an open event, as you all remember, and we had about 740 entries. And so with qualifications this year, we have about 770 entries. So very excited to see everybody on site this week and cap off our youth regatta season. Awesome. So to go over a quick agenda, we'll start off by doing a welcome from US Rowing, going over the registration and venue schedule. We'll review the code of conduct and then talk safe sport and what the check-in process from the registration tent will be. Then I'll hand it over to our chief referee and deputy referee, Ruth and Duncan, for referee welcome, going over the traffic patterns, rules of rowing, hitting items on the water, racing, finish, and then capping off with unsportsmanlike conduct. And then we will go into more details with our LOC, specifically talking about safety on the venue and referring back to parking. If you do have any questions throughout, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A, and we will address everything at the end. Great, so like I said earlier, a few people on this call. So from the US Rowing end, we have Jules Zane, who's the Director of Membership, myself, Sarah McAuliffe, the Director of Events. We have Rich Cachopo, who's our Chief Programs Officer, and we have Reggie Robinson, who is our Events Coordinator. From Nathan Benderson Park, we have Sarah Kupiak here, so thank you to her and Sarah's team. And then Chief and Deputy Referees, we have Ruth McNamara and Duncan Hudson. Great, so to go over a schedule, starting on Monday, June 6th, being tomorrow, the venue and lake access are closed to all for course tweaks. Then starting on Tuesday, the venue will reopen for trailer parking, and we will open registration on Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. and go until 6 p.m. We'll also on Tuesday have our practice on Tuesday, June 7th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. On Wednesday, we will have registration open again from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then Wednesday practice will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. again. For practice on both of those days, our last launch will be at 5:30 p.m. So docks will close at 5:30. And then for heat sheets, you currently have the schedule up on Regatta Central and Here Now. The heat sheets and lane assignments will be posted on Here Now and Regatta Central by Tuesday, June 7th. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back one slide. And Jules, if you just want to go explain a little bit more about registration and what the coaches and athletes will expect from that tent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important thing is to make sure that everyone's compliant before you arrive on site. We can obviously assist when you get there, but it may keep that person or that coach or support staff from entering the boat and dock area for this regatta. There is fencing on the island that's kind of splits the island into two sections, one for spectators specifically, and then one for athletes, for the boat trailers, for coaches to do their jobs. To access that second area, you're going to need a wristband with your name on it, which we can only give to you if you have completed the safe sport training that's appropriate for you, which means that if you're an athlete who is age 18 or older, that you have to take the adult athlete training. And for coaches and support staff for each team to access the island, you have to be registered ahead of time. Or if you register on site and there's still room for your team to do that, then they have to have taken the appropriate safe sport training, which is the safe sport core training, that if they're taking it for the first time, takes about 90 minutes. And if they've done it before, a refresher would take about 30 minutes. Sarah, can you explain real quick, and I can jump back, where people can register their coaches and support staff?
Yes, we'll actually go into that in about 2 slides.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we'll wait till then. I also just want to add a note from the registration tent, along with picking up those wristbands, you'll also receive, a coach will receive a goodie bag, which includes your bound numbers for the first day as well. So those all need to be picked up before getting on the water. Awesome, thank you. So going to go through the code of conduct. If you've been on a CNC with our owned regional events before, you have heard this before, and you'll also see some signage on site. So everything here applies to everybody that is joining us this weekend, but I want to run through the highlighted items or the bolded items. So just to read through the topic, at US Rowing, our mission is to champion participation in the passionate pursuit of excellence in rowing. To support this mission, we need to ensure rowing at all levels is fair, inclusive, competitive, and safe for all participants. Whether an athlete, coach, parent, vendor, staff, volunteer, or spectator at a US Rowing event, you are a member of the US Rowing community. We invite you to enjoy this experience and expect you to abide by the following code of conduct. So the first item being safety and well-being, it's the top priority of US Rowing to safeguard the physical and emotional well-being of all of the community members. The second being professionalism and integrity. US Rowing expects respectful and honest communications and behavior. The third being the boathouse is open to everyone. As members of the US Rowing community, it is critical that we model positive behavior and advance the inclusive and competitive culture we envision. Finally, non-compliance is not an option. If a community member chooses to not follow the US Rowing Code of Conduct, there will be consequences. These include disqualification, dismissal from the event, exclusion from future events, legal action, and removal of your US Rowing membership. Please notify a US Rowing official in the event of witnessing illegal, discriminatory, or inappropriate activity. Great, and Jules, if you want to go over safe sport again.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, new this year is that we are requiring safe sport training for all athletes age 18 or older. Contrary, I should almost say, to rowing age, which is determined by the age you turn at any point in the calendar year, this is about your actual age. So an athlete who may have turned 18 since the regional championship might now be required to take this training where previously they were not. So I think it's important to double check that. I know when we looked earlier, there was a limited percentage of athletes still left who had to do this, but I want to emphasize that it's important to check with your athletes age 18 or older that they've taken the training. If you are support staff for the team, or if you are a coach with the team, then it's important that you take the core training, which, like I said, takes 90 minutes, or the refreshers, who take a lot less time. But if there's not like direct contact, or literally everything you do is in a public setting, like you're the parent running the food tent, or you're in some other role that's similar to that, it's just important that you know what your team's policy would be if you saw something that you thought was inappropriate. But there's no training requirement for people in that role. And then I think, Sarah, is the next slide about the registration of staff. And yep. We are auditing, and we have ways of checking that everyone who's coming to the regatta has taken the safe sport training. It's very important that you register people ahead of time so we can print their bands and there's not a delay when you get on site. The rule that we've put in place for the number of bands that a team can get is that regardless of the number of entries, even if it's just one, you can get 3 bands for coaches, and you can get a band for support staff for each entry that you have. And then for additional entries, You can get more coaching bands with a maximum of 10, and you can get up to 5 support staff bands if you happen to have, 5 entries or more. So there's essentially a cap of about 15 people that you can bring onto the island on top of the athletes that you are bringing. Reason for the cap is pretty simple. There are 208 teams, if I'm not mistaken, coming to this regatta. And we just want to make sure that we're not making that area busier than it should be. And so make sure to use the feature ahead of time to list everyone that you're going to bring and who's going to need that band, because those bands are needed to probably go to your boat trailer to do rigging, but also to have dock access and maybe carry down oars and things like that. So please make sure that you do that. Sarah, if they haven't registered, could you talk them through where they go?
Yep, exactly. So if you haven't registered already, you'll pull up the Youth Nationals Regatta Central page. On the left-hand side, it will have a bunch of options. It's where you enter for the event, and it's going to say registration. And then 2 underneath that, it's going to say Safe Sport. So just one word, Safe Sport. You'll click on Safe Sport, and then it'll pull up this exact screen that you're seeing right now.
Sarah, there were a couple more questions in the Q&A that are perfect for right now. If people have either alternates who are under the age of 18, or if there are support staff under the age of 18, or they have alternates, where would they go to add those?
Yeah, so if you have an alternate athlete, when you enter your lineup in Regatta Central, it will show a spot to add those alternates for that specific event. Lineups are currently closed right now, but we will go ahead and open them for a very short period of time so that you can add those alternates in. We're discussing exactly what that time will be, but it'll probably be you'll get a notice after this meeting, and then it'll be complete by early tomorrow morning. But that if you haven't done it already, I know a bunch of people have already added their alternates, but if you haven't done so, you'll go back up in your alternate or in your lineup feature and select who you're adding for seat like 9 or 10 and an 8. Great. Thank you, Jules. Now we're going to talk with our chief and deputy referee, Ruth McNamara and Duncan Hudson.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, I'm Ruth McNamara, and I'm here with Duncan Hudson, who's on this call. I'd like to welcome all of you to the 2022 Youth Nationals. Duncan and I will be joined by 30 experienced referees from across the countries. All 6 regions will be represented, and it is actually an honor and a privilege for all of us to be here. All the referees there were either nominated by the regional coordinator or handpicked by myself and Duncan. Our role really is to ensure your safety and fairness and to make sure that you have a great experience at this championship. So if you have any questions during the championship, you can ask any referee that you see on site, and if they don't know the answer, they will find Duncan or myself to help them. I want to remind you, this is your championship and we are here for you. Again, this is not a rules clinic, but we do expect you to know the rules of racing and all the information that is in the regatta packet. The purpose of this CNC really is to highlight specific issues that are relevant to this venue. And there's a lot of information here to share, so please pay attention. Topics I'm going to cover are medical, weather, practice, uniforms, control commission, the time trial warm-up, the time trials themselves, and sprint racing warm-up and sprint racing. So put your questions in the chat, and Duncan or myself will answer at the end of the presentation. Medical will be at control commission under a tent. They're usually EMTs. It'll be at the start, and that is usually a lifeguard. And again, at the finish line, it's either Dr. Fava or her group of EMTs will be at the finish line. So there's 3 spots where we'll have medical. The weather, it's really important that you pay attention because it's unpredictable. We're likely to have thunderstorms that could interrupt racing. It could actually knock out a round of racing or 2. So I want to remind you to row each race like they matter, as if it's a final. And if we need to clear the course, please always follow the instructions when the referees are helping you. Practices, really important here. If you are going to be at Youth Nationals, and you plan to be at the U19, U23 trial that follows the next week, it's imperative that you understand that while you are competing at youth nationals, you cannot practice in the trials practice session, which is after youth nationals close for the evening. So you can't go out in that. So to be clear, until you are knocked out of youth nationals, you can't practice in trials. But if you are knocked out early, you can register with Sanka and they'll allow you to practice during the trials practice times. Practices are Tuesday and Wednesday, like Sarah said, from 8 to noon and 2 to 6. And the launching dock will close 30 minutes before the end of each session. So it'll be 11:30 in the morning and it'll be 5:30 in the afternoon session. Only credentialed crews can be allowed to go out to practice. Each crew this year, I know there are a lot of issues about practice in the past, and I think we've heard you, and we are trying to accommodate more practice time. So each crew is allowed 75 minutes to practice in each practice session. And US Rowing staff will be on the docks and they'll be monitoring the time you go out and when you come back in. And if you exceed the 75 minutes, you may be assessed a penalty, and that penalty would be a warning, and that'll carry to the next round of racing. So if you practice in all 4 sessions, be careful that you don't get warnings for not coming off on time. Because if you got 2 warnings and 1 in each practice session, you would be excluded from racing. So be mindful of that. Plus sportsmanship, it allows everybody a chance to get out on the water. On Wednesday, during both sessions, we are going to have referees up in the start tower, and they are going to do rolling starts. We're not going to have stake boat holders. You're not going to back down into the starting area. You're not going to be doing a start from the start there. But what we want you to do is to observe what the lights look like and what the sound and tone is. So referees will be doing mock starts every 1.5 to 2 minutes on a rolling basis so that everybody has an opportunity to hear and see them. If it gets crowded during practice starts, the starters will attribute a lane to you and ask you to go to a specific lane, and we ask that you stay in that lane and follow the instructions the referee gives you. So let's look at the practice traffic pattern. You won't be able to see my cursor, but I'm going to talk through this. There are 4 launching docks and a smaller dock in the middle. The 2, yes, thank you, Reggie. The 2 at the top, they're closest to the course, are the 2 launching docks. During practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, you'll launch from those 2 docks. You'll follow the red arrows and you will go up. This is a lot of water here in this lane. It looks skinny, but it's not. There's a lot of room. You go up and you're going to get onto the course, under the bridge there and onto the course. You can row down in 00, 0, 1, 2. 3 is closed where referees are going to be sitting. And then 4, 5, 6, and 7. Everyone is going in the same direction. There's no turning. You're not looping at the finish and coming back up. So it's one big loop is to go all the way down the course. You turn after the island, go through the canal. You come around Bird Island. There'll be a launch there with a referee in it. And you have a choice here. You can recover at the 2 docks closest to Bird Island there. And you can see the medical sign. That's where their tent is. Yep. If you choose to do another circle or another loop, just make sure you have time. You will feed yourself in with the boats that are launching. You'll just go in and weave in with them and do that whole pattern again. Okay, and you can do that as many times as you can in 75 minutes before you have to get off the water. Let's see what's there. I think that's it for practice patterns. Yeah, thank you. Next slide is Uniforms and Control Commission. All athletes must have their torso covered while on the venue during all practices and all racing. During racing, everybody has to be in a racing uniform. So Control Commission, before you approach the docks, it's your responsibility that your boat is compliant with all the safety rules, whether it's heel ties, bow balls, or if you're in a bow loaded 4, that the coxswain opening meets all the safety limits. We will be checking every bow ball, and that's because the safety of your bow ball affects all crews on the water. We will visually check your heel ties, If any are untied, they must be tied before you can go on the water. It'd be really nice if you knew your race number and lane number when we're doing sprint racing. We ask that you keep all the walkways and docks clear of oars, shoes, clothing, anything else that you tend to leave around the docks. And don't leave anything on the dock, especially your shoes. They won't be there when you come back. So follow the referee's instructions. When you go through control commission, we ask you to be quick off the dock, especially during the time trials. There are a lot of boats to get out through that day. And we ask you to have only the minimal number of people on the dock to help you. I can't say it enough. Check your rigging. Will not hold races for poor rigging, and poor rigging is not breakage. So a race won't be held for you. Next slide. Time trials warm up. We'll look at that traffic pattern. So similar to last year, if you were at Youth Nationals, Senko has been nice enough to add this extra loop here for us to have 2 warm-up patterns at the same time. So you'll still launch from the 2 docks. We will only launch 1 event at a time. We've moved the time for warm-up before your race to 45 minutes. So you can launch anytime after 45 minutes. Let's just say that we started with the girls singles and they were put up into the top loop closest to the race course. That is a clockwise pattern that you go all the way down and can turn around and come back. Where there are orange buoys, that is a stopping signal for you. You either turn, especially up by the start, you either turn when it's your race, you either turn before the orange buoy and keep warming up, and you can now turn in the middle there. They made a shorter loop for us. But to be very clear, and this happened last year and people were upset by it. Once you go past this orange buoy up by the start, where you see the last referee, that means you're ready to stage for your race. In other words, your warm-up is over and you're going to sit there. We ask you to be up here 8 or 9 minutes before the start of your race, because as soon as the race before you takes off, you're going to be invited onto the course. Same thing for the other race, the other traffic pattern. You'll launch, just as the boys singles would then be put into the lower traffic pattern, and you would go down and do a counterclockwise, circling towards the left, towards your port side. And you can go all the way down to the orange buoy and loop and do short loops, or you can go all the way back and forth. The larger boats may choose to do the bigger loops, but we wanted to make it safe and to also give the small boats a cutoff point that they could make a smaller loop. For the time trial, once you're staged here and you're invited onto the course, you'll go through this bridge and you will see the sprint starting installation right by the start docks. So it's sort of like going through an S-turn. You'll go through the canal, come out on the other side and scoop back onto the course. We ask you to pull up about 20 meters so that any crews that are staging behind you can get in behind you. So you're not going to pull in and back down. When you get through the canal, a referee on the lane 7 finger will attribute your lane, and we'll put odd bound numbers into an odd lane and even bound numbers into an even lane. So for example, if we're using lanes 3 and 4, they would stage you into 3, you'll pull up a little and 4 comes in, and the person who is behind that one would go over and get behind 3 in lane 3. The referee between you will tell you when you can go. We're going to start every 20 to 30 seconds. And when you're asked to go, you need to go. There is not time to sit there and do anything. The starting line is the 100-meter mark. There's no sound at the start. You're given permission to go. You have 70 or 80 meters to build up to full pressure. You'll know you're on the course when the buoys go from red to yellow. And you'll row the whole course. And at the end, there's no sound. So you row through those big buoys at the end. When you are on the course, if you happen to be in front of a crew that is faster than you, you'll pull off the course and let that crew pass you, and you can stay in that outside lane. So again, we're using lanes 3 and 4. Lane 3 would go out to lane 2, and lane 4 would go out to lane 5. And the part I want to be clear about is we want you out of that lane before the faster boat behind you is within a boat length of open water, you need to be out of their lane. It is not a head race, it is a time trial, and we'd like everyone to have the opportunity to row unobstructed down the course. At the finish, I say, go through the orange buoys. If you have any issues, you can speak to the finish marshal, which is down there at the finish. The first referee will be at 200 meters on the course. So you'll start, the starting line is when the buoys change color. If you have breakage from that point that you're on the course to the 200-meter mark, pull off. It has to be real breakage, not poor rigging. And that first referee will help you. You have 15 minutes to repair breakage. But in the time trial, what we're going to do is finish the event you're in, allow the next event to row, and you will follow that next event down. So it is likely anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. But again, please check your boats before you go out. If you have breakage along the course, do your best to finish. And again, if you're slower, you need to pull out of the way so other crews can row down unobstructed. You'll paddle back through the canal, come around Bird Island, and you will recover at the 2 recovery docks. That's the time trial one. These buoys at the bottom half will not be used for any of the sprint racing. So whether it's boys or girls that get put in the left side, and it just so happens that we alternate, girl, boy event, or the other way around, boy, girl. Anyways, whoever gets in the second traffic pattern, you need to forget it after time trials, because you'll go back into the clockwise one at the top for all sprint racing. Okay, we're going on to sprint racing. Let's jump to that traffic pattern. So here it is. I know it doesn't reflect those buoys are there, and that just means you're not allowed to go out in that water at all. So for race day traffic pattern, sprint racing, you'll come in to the same traffic pattern, you'll loop the same way. It'll be a clockwise, there'll be 3 marshals out there. You can turn wherever there are yellow buoys. If you have any equipment breakage during the warm-up, please tell any of those refs. They will try to facilitate you getting it fixed as soon as you can. We ask you not to go back to the dock. If we can fix it on the water, we will. Be up here at the top of the marshalling area 8 or 9 minutes before your race time, so that as soon as this race goes off, you are shepherded in and you'll be able to start. The start marshal will call your event. You'll go in. The starter will attribute you your lane. And the reason I say that is, even though you may have bound numbers in for using lanes, I don't know, 1 through 6, we may move and use 2 through 7, depending on the weather or the wind or anything like that. So please listen to what lane the starter attributes for you. They'll call a 5, 4, and 3 2-minute call. You're responsible to be locked on at 2 minutes, no change there. You're also responsible to keep your point by sculling. We'll start as close to race time as we can. And just remember, at the 2-minute call, you need to be ready to race, because the starter can start the race anytime after 2 minutes is called. Let's go to the start on the next slide. We plan to use the light system and tone system, and that's what we'll be using on Wednesday in your practice, so that you are familiar with the sound and what it looks like. We'll do an announced start, and if necessary, we'll move to a quick start. You all should be familiar with that. If it's 6 lanes, it's 6 names and a cadence and the word attention, and the red light goes on, and that's like an 8-beat cadence. As soon as they say attention, everyone needs to be sitting still. There'll be a variable pause, and then the green light comes on with a tone, which is your start. If we're going to a quick start, the starter will announce quick start, and then the commands are quick start, attention, and again, the red light, and it'll turn to green and a tone. If you have any objections at the start, you have to stay at the start. Don't leave the start if you're not ready, if you don't have your point, if you think it's unsafe. The starter has to stop the race if you don't go. If you had a valid reason for not going, then we'll just restart the race. If they think it's a delay of regatta and you didn't have a legitimate reason, it's a warning. If the light system fails for any reason, we will go to flags and verbal starting commands. There we go. On the course, once you're out of breakage, it's your responsibility for your steering. Please heed any instructions the referees are giving you down the course. Typically, if you're getting too close or into someone else's lane, they'll use your name, raise the white flag, they'll drop it in the direction that you need to go. We're not steering you, but we're protecting the other crew on whose water you are infringing on. Next slide. At the end of the race, you finish the race. If you feel that your opportunity to win, place, or advance was impacted, negatively impacted, raise your hand, get the following referee's attention. They'll listen to your objection. You need to be able to state what happened, and it doesn't have to be the coxswain who talks, but it needs to be one person who decides to speak for the team, for the boat. So state what happened, where it happened, and most importantly, what remedy do you want to restore your fairness? What would you like to see happen? The referee may need to speak to other crews who might be involved. The referee will render a decision on the water. If you agree with their decision and the crews that are affected all agree, then it goes away and you get what you wanted. But if you disagree with their ruling, or if a crew that is affected by the referee's decision disagrees, you need to state that you would like to take it onto shore and potentially have a protest. And what you're protesting is the referee's decision to what you want to restore your fairness. So you have an hour from the time you land at the dock to have a written protest and $50 cash. And find me. If you can't find me, the chief judge is in the finish tower on the 3rd floor, and you can drop your protest off there. We'll review that. One thing I wanted to add as that we are not going to be holding races for hot seating. That is just one point that came up when it gets to the end of racing. Next slide. Yeah. I don't typically even talk about this, and I don't think that we'll have a problem with this, but I want to be clear about unsportsmanlike conduct. You know, there are a lot of things that qualify as unsportsmanlike conduct, but I think that you all will behave accordingly, that we don't have this issue. But if profanity is used, and especially if it's used towards another athlete, towards another crew, it may be deemed as unsportsmanlike conduct. And so a violation of this rule may result in exclusion or disqualification, and both of those would be horrible for making this trip and all the efforts you've put into it. And I want to say that if anyone is, you know, it's been decided that, or you've been accused of unsportsmanlike conduct, I want you to know that the chief referee, so myself, a member of USRowing, and a member of the Youth Advisory Committee, we will convene and we will decide whether your conduct was unsportsmanlike or not, and then what punishment we may have to render for that. So it won't be a single decision by any one referee. It will definitely be a group decision by 3 different parties. And so please keep that in mind. But we expect the best from you guys, and we know you can do that. So my last items are, you could jump slides for me, would be great. Yeah, Hawkeye. We have a position called Hawkeye, and this is a person who is on the very top of the finish tower, and they're watching every crew as you leave the finish of the race and go through that 700 meters in the canal. They are there for your safety. So if you have any medical issue or safety issue in the canal, please start waving your hands so that the person who is watching sees you quickly, and they will send aid towards you. And please keep all your hands and feet in the boats at all times. We all know that this venue has had alligators. There are no issues, really. We're not concerned about it, but we do want you to keep your hands and feet inside. Again, this is your regatta. We're honored and privileged to be here. And if any time during this week you have any issues, please find myself or Duncan, and we will listen and we'll address any issues you may have as we can. And if there are any questions, Duncan and I'll both try to answer them.
Thanks, Ruth. We're going to go to Sarah Kupiak from the venue, and she's going to talk over the evacuation plan.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to congratulate everyone on making it to Youth Nationals and coming again to Sarasota. We're excited to have everyone here and looking forward to your arrival. Safe travels. talk about the evacuation plan, because that is very important, dealing with possible weather here in Florida. There is the chief, let me just go through this. The chief referee will suspend, cancel, or resume the rowing plans on the water. The starter directs the evacuation of the start area, including crews in line behind the start area. The start marshal and the referee closest to the start are designated to evacuate the starters, the aligner, and the stake boat holders to land. The referees along the race course direct the evacuation of crews on the course expeditiously and move to the beach landing sites to assist crews and document the recovered crews so that we can make sure everyone's safe and off the water. The warm-up and the pre-start marshals over in the East Basin will direct and escort the crews in the warm-up area back to the launch and recovery docks. And the referee that's closest to the finish line proceeds to the launch and recovery docks through the canal and will use all docks at launch and recovery for evacuation. We'll coordinate the boats going onto the docks. It's very important. One thing that's not mentioned here is that, be sure that you're there to assist your crews getting off the docks. So that way, if we have to have a lot of people getting off those docks at one time, the coaches are there to assist their crews getting off and getting the equipment out of the way for the next crew that we need to get off the water. And then obviously Control Commission will stop launching and direct the dock master in recovering boats expeditiously and safely and document all the returning crews. But this is where it's all hands on deck, get your crews off the water and safely, secured, back to a safe place, which is in this case, the vehicles and or buses that you guys came in. If you can go to the next slide. So just a little about parking. We typically do have parking on the island, but because this is such a large event, we are very limited on the parking now. So each team will receive one parking pass when you go to registration. You'll be able to pick up that parking pass with your packet from USRowing. And all other vehicles, team vehicles, spectator vehicles, will park in what we call the moat lot, which is right on the corner of DeSoto and Cattleman, right across from the Homewood Suites. There's signage indicating how to get into that lot, or we have a very large lot at the south end of the venue. That both lots are $10 per day per vehicle. And the athlete vans that don't have that one pass to get onto the island, you can drop the athletes in the drop-off loop and then proceed to one of those parking lots off island. So either that north lot, which does tend to fill up quicker because it is paved and marked spots, so we're very limited there, or the south end. We will have a trolley that will be running continuously around the lake, and that trolley stops are shown on the following slide, but if you want to take a screenshot there, we have the trolley times Tuesday through Sunday, so you guys can park at those different parking lots and get back to the island. If you go to the next slide, just kind of gives you an overview of the yellow dots are the trolley locations. There's not one indicated on this map for the island, but that is the third location. So the trolley will be picking up at the south end, proceeding up the west shore, dropping off at the playground for anyone that may want to spectate in the non-ticketed general public access only on the west shore. There will be no vehicle access past the 500-meter bathroom to the playground, and then proceed onto the island to drop off patrons and athletes in that drop-off loop. It does show the green hatched in area to the south down by the start line. That is the general parking area. And then the red hand sketched area by the roundabout, that is the second lot, the first lot that we call the moat lot for parking. That hatched half circle over by the mall is off limits, as most of you will see if you haven't been here in a while, that we are under major construction in the north end of Nathan Benderson Park for the future moat aquarium. So there's not very much land up there, and we will not be able to utilize any of that for parking. The spectator area for the ticketed patrons is on the island. The team tent area, which your teams, if you've rented a shade tent, be sure that that is paid for in advance. We will not label that team tent, and you will not be able to take possession until that is paid in full. Everyone received an email with the invoice. My phone number is in there. If anyone has any questions, best way to get a hold of me is my cell phone. But those team tents are in the general spectator area, but they're all lumped together in that team tent area. The only place that crews will be able to put up tents is in that team tent area. We will not allow tents in the boat trailer area. So please be sure that you are setting up your shade tents for your athletes over in the team tent area there. That is where parents can assist you with keeping your food and drink and tending to the athletes. But there is a fence, as they discussed earlier, around the athlete area that will be secured. So that will only be credentialed personnel, staff, coaches only into that area. But there will be food vendors on site down by the finish tower, and there will be limited access around the finish tower for the VIP and the finish line spectator viewing ticketed entry points that US Rowing has been selling. So that's kind of a brief overview on the venue. And if anyone else has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Sarah. There's quite a few questions here. So Sarah, before we go off the tent topic, we have a question from Jamie of where do we pay for tents? I think you mentioned an invoice in their inbox.
So whoever submitted the tent rental request would have received an invoice from me. And there's a link in that invoice on how to pay. You go to our website, there's a pay invoice tab. You just put your team name. Once you get that invoice, your team name, and the Youth Nats is the invoice number, if you will, and then the amount that you're paying by credit card or PayPal. You can do that right on our website.
Great, thank you. I do want to cover just a few ticketing questions or ticket summaries first, and then graduation ceremony, and then we'll go back into the questions. So for ticketing, if you are coming onto the island, all spectators do need a ticketing or a spectator pass. General admission is still available, and they are for the full 4 days. So you can come in and out as many times as you'd like. We do have to scan your ticket every single time you come in. So just make sure that it's either on your phone, like in your Apple Wallet, or you can print out your pass, and we'll go ahead and scan it there. We will not have any tickets for sale by cash on site, but the ticket website will be open throughout the entirety of the event. So if you do need a last minute ticket, you can do that from your car or walking up to the event there. If you're unable to access your ticket for whatever reason, there will be a US Rowing staff member there to assist in that process. So please just come find us, and we'll be more than happy to make that process seamless for you. On Wednesday evening, we'll be having the graduation ceremony for graduating seniors. So we will go ahead, welcome the seniors. There's some like fun activation items that you'll be able to join in and take some pictures with leading up to that event. We'll go ahead and get started at 6:30, and we'll hear from Brooke Mooney on the national team. She'll address the full class there, and then afterwards everybody can go ahead and head out. But there's no spectator tickets required for that event. So it's first come, first serve seating. The athletes will be seated towards the front and can bring their cap and gowns, and the all spectators, parents, guests can go ahead and be seated behind them. So again, that's Wednesday starting at 6:30. I'm going to start a few more items here just about like 10 area, Sarah, and also admission tickets. So if you are a coach, do you need a spectator ticket? No, if you are a coach or athlete, you are going to get a wristband from Jules at Membership, and that is essentially a ticket into the event. So you'll enter in from the same places, but no, you as a coach do not need a spectator ticket.
Sarah, can I interject here? There's so many questions about team support, under 18 support, over 18 support, wristbands. I just want to say that if the athlete area gets too crowded and it's unsafe for the boats to be moving around, we will limit and be asking for those wristband backs from some teams that have gotten a lot, okay? It's happened at a recent regatta that too many people are in the athlete area, and it was obstructive rather than a benefit.
Thanks, Ruth.
Sarah, do you want me to go through a couple of the questions that are shorter that I can?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead, Jules?
Sure. So one of the questions was about support staff under 18 who are not alternates. If you haven't quite filled up your alternate spots, you can use the alternate spots to add those people. That's the easiest way to do it and make sure that they have a band pre-printed. If you have filled all your alternate spots and you still have room left for additional support staff, and some of them are under 18, send us an email or just come see us at registration and we can remedy that there and get bands for those people. People are, so the question was, where will athletes be given their wristbands? The coaches at registration will get a packet that will contain all the wristbands for the team, for coaches, support staff, and athletes at the same time. And they will be handing them out to the athletes. So athletes don't get them from us, they're gonna get them from the coaches. And we are handing them out there. Can an athlete be listed as an alternate for multiple boats? Yes, if an athlete is listed with a boat as an alternate, that doesn't mean they're tied specifically to that boat. As long as an athlete is compliant with perhaps other categories that you are racing in. So they are age compliant, maybe with a U17 boat or youth, or some other requirement that might apply to that boat, they can race in that other event. It's a way to get them on the list and to get them into the boat area, but it doesn't tie them specifically to that regatta or to that entry. Do support staff have to be US Rowing members? Yes, but with this requirement, in January, we introduced a membership level specifically for that. That is $0. So a person can go to membership.usrowing.org, click on join, create a membership, and with that membership, pay $0 by picking volunteer. That gives them access to safe sport training. It gives them a member number, but it doesn't actually charge them. So we want them in the database so we can check compliance a little easier, but there's no cost. Where can we go to verify that as a coach that we have accurate safe sport? You can actually see that on your profile. So there are two ways for me to see if you've done your safe sport. I can go into the back end of the software for safe sport, but I can also just look at your profile, and that's where you can check to see if everything's good to go. So again, membership.usrowing.org, you log in, and it'll say safe sport, what your expiration date is. If you're not seeing that, come see us at registration or shoot us an email ahead of time, and we can take a look, see if we can fix it or if we can find it in the back end and then go from there. Let's see. Sarah, do you want me to take that next one too?
Yes, so if an athlete in the 1V becomes sick or injured, are you allowing for a pop-up, meaning can an athlete from the 2V can move into the 1V and the spare goes into the 2V? So if no one has raced yet, yes, an athlete from the 2V can then go into the 1V and then the alternate can pop into that 2V. If they have raced, so if the 2V has raced, then no, the alternate should then just go directly into that 1V. Is the 1 lap rule being enforced? So no, we are not requiring a certain number of laps. We are saying that all crews have 75 minutes on the water. So at the docks, you will be greeted by a USRowing employee that checks you in, reminds you of that rule. They are, if you pass that rule, we'll ask you to come in, but you are required to go 75 minutes and under. If we hit capacity on the water at any point, if a certain area does get jumbled up, the USRowing employee will then ask you to wait at the docks and hang tight until we're able to have clear traffic flow. So just importance of keeping everyone safe. And we know that weather can pop up quickly in Sarasota. So this is just to ensure that we are being completely safe out there and we can get everybody off the water in a timely manner.
75 minutes is per boat, not per team.
Thank you.
And the distance is about 42 to 4,500 meters, the loop.
Do athletes have to wear uniforms during practice? Yes.
Meaning it doesn't have to be everyone in a team uniform, but they all have to be dressed.
Thank you. Jules, another safe sport question here.
Well, let me see. The one at the top. So for support staff over the age of 18 who have a band, the support staff, coaches, athletes all get a band that has access to both what we call the spectator area and the boat area. So to answer that question specifically, if someone is support staff, they're over the age of 18, they do not need to pay for general admission.
No announcements will be made for launching. You can first launch 45 minutes before your race and then anytime after that. Will travel lanes be assigned by boat class? If it gets crowded, yes, they will. And we will put small boats in the middle and let the bigger boats be on the outside. What do the orange buoys mean on the right side of the time trial warm-up pattern? Can we go back to that so I can just show? That orange buoy on the right side where a referee is sitting there, they have a referee launch right there. That just means when you're coming back to return, you have to turn right there between the yellow and orange buoy. The orange buoys really are stopping points. They can't go down to the end and circle around. They'll turn between yellow and orange. At the top, it means the same thing. You either turn or you commit to going to the race course. Where is the start at? Again, meter wise. So the start, I'm assuming you mean time trial. It is 100 meters. And yes, it is a 1900 meter time trial. When you say pull up at start for time trial 20 meters, do you mean 20 meters? No, I mean, if the original sprint start is 0 meters and the time trial start is 100 meters, we'd like you to pull in and pull up about 20 meters. So you still have 70, 80 meters to get up to speed. But that 20 meters will allow the boats behind you to come in. If a crew needs to move over to be passed, do they stay in the outside lane to the finish or come back to the main lane? They can stay in the outside. Are 500,000 buoyed with a different color? No, but each 500 meter, 1,000 meter, and I think even the 250s all have a orange buoy in the buoy line to signify. Plus at Sarasota, everything is marked really well. They have the 500,000 and 1,500 meter markers up. You will know where you are on the course. Will the on-water marshals have basic tools in case of breakage during warm-ups? No, I wouldn't count on it. I think your coxswains should always have their tools to tighten things up with themselves, not on us as marshals. So for warm-up during time trial, you can turn for a loop at orange buoys. And for sprint racing, it's the yellow buoys? No, not at all. Let me try to do this again. Imagine this is the time trial because it's got two opposite direction. Everyone's going to go up in the middle, so there's no head-on collisions. And then the top one turns to the right and the bottom one turns to the left. What it means is that you can turn anywhere there's a yellow buoy, and the orange buoy means if you go past it. Isn't that what they're asking? So you still would turn, going up to the start, you want to do another loop. You turn after the yellow, but before the orange, and you come back and you can turn either between two yellows or you go down back towards launching and you turn between an orange and a yellow. The orange is a stopping point. Hope that makes sense. So the light will turn green when the ref calls row? No. How do I explain this? 6 crews names will be said in a cadence, you know, and then the referee says, attention. A red light goes on instead of a red flag going up, a red light goes on. A variable pause. Nothing spoken from the referee after the word attention. The light changes from red to green and a tone goes off, and that allows the crew to start. No. Are coxswains allowed to curse as long as it's not directed towards other teams? No, it can't be directed at their own teammates either. Will there be a live stream for racing?
Yes, there will be a live stream. It'll be on our USRowing YouTube channel. So you're going to go ahead and you'll find some cool exclusive interviews partnering with Rower's Choice there. And we will also see streaming Friday through Sunday of the sprint racing. We will not stream, as we've done in the past, the full day of time trials.
Are we allowed to cool down on the water after our race? If so, what's the traffic pattern? So I'll tell you, in 2019, I had this whole cool down pattern installed because we were running worlds there, U23 worlds, and not one crew from youth nationals went in the cool down. So no, we're not running cool down. Does Nathan Benderson's no swimming rule apply to athletes after a race? You tell me. I just told you don't put hands and feet in the water, and now you're asking if you can swim there? No.
This is Sarah. I keep getting kicked off. I don't know why, but we absolutely not. We do not allow, we had to implement this and remind them at NCAA's as well that we do not allow the throwing of the coxswain in the water or anything of that sort. Please do not do that.
Thank you,
For the
Sarah.
safety of your athletes.
Thank you.
Sarah, there's another question here. For the $10, can I come in and out during the day of the parking lot?
Yes, you just have to have your parking ticket. And I just want to make sure that people understand, because this has been a subject in the past, that people, if you come and go, you're not getting the same spot you may have had the first time. We're not saving spots for people, but it gets you back into a parking lot and you don't have to pay again. So believe it or not, that's the thing. And people think they're getting the same parking spot, but you're not. You just don't have to pay again.
Another question here, Sarah. Can teams have a 10 by 10 tent for shade at their trailer?
Well, I just discussed not having tents, but I mean, for the safety and the wellness of the athletes and, having shade, I think that, we would allow it, but it needs to be right at the front of your trailer. It can't be off to the side where you're taking up room from someone else being able to get their boats off of their trailer parked right next to you. So just be conscious of other people around you and put it at the front or the back of your trailer. Don't do that.
If we don't have team vans but are bringing athletes in team cars, can they still be dropped at the course?
Yes, you'll still get one parking pass, so you can bring one vehicle down, whether it's a van, a go-kart, whatever you're bringing your athletes in, you get one parking pass to come onto the island. You can pull onto the island in the drop-off loop to drop off the rest of your athletes, and then you must proceed to the other parking lots.
And this asks, when we shift lanes to let another crew pass during the time trial, do we stay in that lane or do we go back to our original lane? I'm going to tell you, you're allowed to stay in the outside lane. You can come back in, but that might take you a little more time, but you can stay on the outside.
Someone asked a question, where do I go to get a tent spot? If you're asking about just if you're bringing your own tent, just a reminder, we do not allow 10 by 20 tents in the venue. You can bring two 10 by 10s and put them together. But for the safety of the 10 by 20s, we do not allow them. It is first come, first serve. The entire front row along the beach has been reserved by rental tents, and that does take up the entire length of the team tent area this time. And so teams can place their tents behind those rented tents. The NCAA D1 crews, well, they obviously they don't pay attention or listen, and I know exactly the team that you were talking about. So we do not allow teams in the lake, and that was heavily monitored upon the conclusion of all of those races, but they did that after the event.
So I think you've answered Nate's question about programs being able to set up shaded space near their trailers, tent tarp. That's already been answered. There's one here about handicap coach. Can you please advise if there will be dedicated handicap parking in the trailer area for team vehicle?
Yes, there is, but I would say that the handicap spaces that are up at top of the drop-off loop would probably be closer and more accessible. It depends on what accessibility you need, if it's a hardball surface or if it's just close proximity. If you want to text me on the side and let me know, I can be sure to point you in the right direction of where it would be the best parking spot for you based upon where your trailer and your team are located. I don't know if that helps answer that. But yes, there's various locations of handicap parking. It just depends on where you're trying to get to. So.
Jonathan Smith is asking, in the practice start lane, is there a certain point at which you should not be stopping to do starts? For instance, after 500 meters, you proceed continuous to the finish line. All lanes will have practice starts in the sense that doesn't matter what lane you've been attributed to, you will hear the tone and see the lights. You can stop and do starts down the course. You just need to be safe in doing it. And then hopefully you don't have a crew barreling down on you in your lane.
Ruth, one of the questions, I don't know if you answered it while I was getting kicked on and off this call, but how wide is the distance between the yellow and the orange buoys?
No, I didn't see that one.
The distance is approximately 500 meters, a little bit more.
Wait, the opening or the distance between two yellow buoys? Because between yellow and orange is just the opening of the gate.
Oh, it's just, yeah, that's just wide enough for,
yeah, crews to turn
boat.
in. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the distance, I think they were talking about the distance from yellow to yellow. So if they wanted to go and do another turn to know how much time they have.
Yeah, it looks like it's 400 to 500 meters. Doesn't it look like that to me on the map? So
you're saying 400 to 500.
it looks like that on the map. Yes.
Yeah, it's roughly 500.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to mark some of these answered on this.
Just click answer live.
Okay, because we answered Nate's, even though that was answered earlier, and I answered Jonathan's about practice starts. And where's the registration tent located at the venue?
It's when you are at the end of the drop-off loop. There is a paved road down to the right towards the boat and trailer area, and the registration tent will be about halfway down that road on the right-hand side behind the first office that you see.
It's right. It's right where the dirt road. Yeah, it's right where the dirt road runs into. Right where the dirt road runs into the pavement. So if you're at the exit bridge, you take a right to go down onto the island, and then you kind of veer to the left. That kind of is a Y intersection. You veer to the left, and there'll be. I mean, we'll have a sign that says registration.
Will there be a tent of 16 or so ergs for possible general use?
No, there will not be ergs, but there will be 2 large shade tents that are located where we typically have boat weigh-in. So those boat weigh-in tents are going to be used for general athlete shade. So anyone is welcome to use those tents. And they're roughly 40 by 80. So there's plenty of room for people to hang underneath.
Can you see this one about receiving 1 complimentary credential? Does this mean the athlete gets credentials and a +1 wristband for family? No, right? Jules, they get a wristband complimentary, but they don't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just typing an answer to that question to knock some of them out. So the complimentary band is for the athlete. And we say that because if teams egregiously lose all their bands, which has happened before because they went to prom and then in the morning we were suddenly printing 80 new bands for that whole team, there is a small cost. So the wristbands are free, the credentials are free the first time around. But if the same people magically keep losing them, there's going to be a small cost for the replacement bands down the road. So that's why it says complimentary. It's because it's at no cost to that person, but there is not an additional band to give to anyone else. You get your own band per athlete.
What if an athlete gets injured or tests positive for COVID and crews have already raced? Can we double up from another boat? No athlete can participate in more than 2 events. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Sarah Kupiak, out of curiosity, why are they not using the boots?
That Sarah McAuliffe, if you'd like to answer that question.
Well, I can say as a chief referee, I would say no to the boots at this level if we want to get all this racing in.
I agree. Sorry, everyone. I just got booted off from internet problems, but agreed, Ruth.
Chris, do you want to, I'm not sure what your rules are, but is there a consequence for swimming or going in the water, just to be fair and clear?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think at this point that there's not even a warning for swimming. I think the athlete themselves are out if they go swimming after all that we've said tonight. Every one of us has had something to say about that. They're out. So if you get caught swimming, you're out of the regatta.
I'll answer this one. Is parking $10 per additional car on Tuesday, Wednesday for practice? No, there's no charge for vehicles until Thursday through, we're only charging for vehicles Thursday through Sunday. But once you get that pass on Tuesday, then we will start looking at the passes to come on the island, but you're free to park at the other locations at no charge Tuesday and Wednesday.
Poppy's asking, what does she mean by they don't have to wear a uniform, but they have to be dressed? I think what I was alluding to is we've already said they have to have their unis up and they can't be bare chest or bare torso. Therefore, what I'm saying is you don't have to wear your racing uniform and all be matchy-matchy, but you do have to be covered.
I'll answer this one. Do we need launch drivers during the practice times? Yes, we do. And we also do need launch boat drivers still during racing. And so, I'm sure many of you have helped in putting these regattas on. It takes a small army. So if you have parents or athletes that are not racing and not helping at your tent and are interested in volunteering, they're just as important, if not more important than the referees. Sorry, Ruth, that make these races happen. So without the volunteers, we won't have the stake boat holders and the launch boat drivers to make this race as fair and safe as possible. So there is a link, I believe, Sarah, you posted it on Regatta Central. So if you want to all share that with your teams, we would love to have the additional volunteers. They do get t-shirts and they get fed during their shift. So I know a lot of people like that free stuff.
Hey, you don't have to apologize to me. We all know we can't run these events without the volunteers. So we really appreciate them.
Yeah.
So here's one that says, in the event that weather cancels all races after time trials, will that crew have another chance to race? Not if all races are canceled.
I'll just say in the regatta packet, it goes over the weather policy too. So of course, we're going to have to be flexible. We're in Florida as weather comes in, but the order of cancellation is in there, or the order of how we're going to react to it. I won't throw around the cancellation yet, but that'll be a group decision made there as well. There's a bunch of repetitive questions in here. So in interest of saving everyone's time, I already know it's a late night. I'm just gonna scan and see if there's anything left that we have not already addressed. Looks like there's one good question here of how can kids volunteer to stake boat hold? Sarah, should they just sign up on that document?
So I just mentioned that if I'm not sure where you posted that volunteer link, it was on Regatta Central. If that's something that can be blasted to all of the teams, that they could easily just email that out to their athletes and their athletes and parents that want to volunteer, that would be very helpful.
Yep, it is on the volunteer tab of Regatta Central, so you can see it right there.
Perfect.
Okay, I apologize if this is repetitive, Ruth, but what is the procedure for after crossing the finish line in sprint racing? Should we wait until all boats have finished?
Typically we do, and then you get shown a white flag. Yeah.
Thank you. How long should we allow to get from the south parking lot to the island by shuttle? Good question.
Depending on where that I would say 10 to 15 minutes.
Perfect.
Sarah, there's a question in here about heel ties, which is a little alarming to me. It asks, will heel ties be checked before and after racing or just before? Makes me wonder if we should check all boats when they come in, is what that's saying.
all coaches and athletes are responsible for their own boats. They should know. We've gone through regional championships with all this information. So please, please, please be responsible in your boats there.
Sarah, I guess the volunteer link is not showing up on Regatta Central. I'm just checking it now. If you could just check into that, please.
Sure. We have one item here. The volunteer sign up sheet says launch drivers need a Florida safe boating certificate.
Yeah, that's something that is being looked into, but if you do have a boating certificate, we know a lot of you drive boats to practice, to coach your kids. So if you guys can provide your boating certificate, we will accept that as well.
Great, thank you. Okay. Is it possible to walk, bike from the island to the path alongside the course?
Yes, I would recommend not walking. We do have bike rentals that should also be, it was listed in the packet, correct, Sarah? Where did I see that?
Yep, the pack, yep, there is a link in the
Yep.
pack.
So there's bike rental options available. I would not recommend walking that path. That is a one-way path that runs from the start to finish down along the water, and that is the coach's path. That follow the races in one direction. There is an upper path, the one that is obviously not along the water, but the second, it's a 15-foot wide asphalt path that meanders that a lot of the general public use as well. So please be sure that if you are going from start to finish and following races, that you're using that lower path and just being safe. And, we did have an accident at the NCAAs and luckily no broken bones, but a lot of bruises and scrapes and needing some stitches, I think an ego was bruised as well. So please be sure you're wearing your helmet and just be safe.
Can coaches ride the path in practice? Sarah, do you have any reason why they couldn't?
Nope. Just be careful with other people out there.
Great, thank you. When can alternates be added to Regatta Central? We will go ahead and open the lineups right after this meeting. We'll keep them opened until 12 p.m. Eastern tonight, and then we will start printing our wristbands and everything tomorrow morning. So please do that immediately after this meeting.
Sarah, do you still have the map up? Can you point to where the boat trailers will be on the island? Yep, in this field right there. And then also down below in what we typically have is down in that field, that entire field that's inside that road to your right. Yep, that entire field. So behind that east, which is down below your arrow, Sarah, that is where all the general parking will be for coaches' vehicles between just on the inside of that road. Yep, right in there.
Great, thank you.
It'll make more sense when you see the trailers laid out.
Right. We will go ahead and post this PowerPoint to Regatta Central right after this. The recording will be up in the morning. And like I said, lineups will be open right after this until midnight tonight on Eastern time. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are excited to have you. If you do have any more questions, feel free to, our contact information is at the end of this presentation, and we'd be happy to address it. We will see you all soon. Thanks so much.